My name is Katie. I'm on the product marketing team, and I work really closely with our customers, especially interior designers, to understand their workflow and get their feedback on the product. So then we can work with the product team to make product improvements and really incorporate any feedback that you have regarding any new features that we need to build to keep making Houzz Pro as valuable for you as it can be. And then, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Chris Kincaid. I've been a client success manager with Houzz now for what will be going on my fifth year. Been really cool just to watch the company grow from more of a strictly marketing platform to what is now far more inclusive of softwares and marketing and kind of everything in between. So personally, I just really like using the softwares and it's something I spend a lot of time on. So hopefully I'll be able to teach people some new tricks and things today.
Awesome. Okay, so I will just give a quick overview of the agenda and then we can jump in. So we're going to be talking about some really fun tools today, like our design tools, 3D floor planner, as well as our mood boards and the room planner. Then we're going to switch gears, talk about time and expenses, along with creating and managing tasks, how to create a detailed timeline that you can use for your projects, and then we'll wrap up with the client dashboard. So as we're going through, feel free to add any questions you have into that Q&A tab or into the chat, and we'll do our best to cover them as we're going through. So Chris, I'll hand it over to you.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get my window shared with you guys, and we'll begin with basically our 3D floor plans. So, just to kind of briefly recap that, today we're going to be looking at several different things, 3D floor plans being one of them. And we're going to start off with our renders and some of the things that we can do there. So, whenever this, it should be visible. Katie, can you just confirm that my screen is shared? You guys are seeing that?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Cool. So today's actually a good day for this. I don't think it was necessarily by design, but today is actually the day that our 2D import launched. So this is something that I know a lot of designers had been requesting, um, builders as well. So I probably shouldn't just limit that to designers. And with the importing feature, we're actually going to go ahead and take a look at that. Though it did turn live today, and today is kind of the first time we've had any chance to use it, it's still something that I want to make sure we initially cover. So we'll spend a moment doing that. And then after that, we'll probably just kind of hop into a more basic floor plan so we can just go through and make sure that we have a good understanding of kind of the fundamentals of how to use the software, how you can kind of expand on just a basic floor plan into something that looks very presentable and nice for your clients. And we'll kind of roll through those two things first. So to begin, I'm going to go ahead and just start with a floor plan as an import. So when I do that, I'm going to hit import floor plan and we're going to be taken to the screen. What we do need to do while we're in our view here, you'll see that we now have the upload drawing tab on the right-hand side available, is bring in a file. So the files that are acceptable are JPEGs, PDFs, and PNGs. They do have a 50 megabyte limit. I don't anticipate that should ever really be getting tested a whole lot. And then at that point, you just bring it in from your computer and it's going to start initiating it. As this is initiating, basically what it's going to want you to do is give the room some scale. This scale is very important for basically all the rooms, and you can do it in really a handful of different ways. What you need to do to create a scale is fix a point on a wall and essentially measure it to another wall. So in this case, if my living room has about a 16-foot, 3-inch width, we want to, as it says, you want to kind of go for longer walls to create better accuracy. But we're going to go ahead and start with this one. I guess I could have done the math and done like the kitchen with the dining room and all this together, but we're not going to do that. So let's go ahead and put in 16 foot, 3 inches, and I'm going to hit done. Now, what that does is it creates basically it imports this floor plan and it makes it into a trace mode here. So we're not necessarily generating a render from that, but we're going to by doing a tracing method. So you'll see that trace is turned on. We have an ability to control transparency. It may be easier if you drop the transparency down slightly, just so you can make sure that you see the walls that you're drawing. And from here, all I really need to do is click on my walls. Up here is the button for drawing walls, this little pencil icon right there. And I just begin. So now if I want to go through and begin by maybe going through the exteriors, I can do that to start. I can come back in later, of course, and bring in all these interior walls. But I can kind of begin with this. And you'll see that there's some red kind of like tracer walls or lines, which help make sure that we're keeping the right angles and the spacing. But now that I've done that, I've gotten my exterior put together. My walls have connected. And as soon as my walls that I was drawing connect again, I go back to my select mode. So what I want to do is go back to my walls. So I'm going to click there on draw walls. And now I have the ability to come down and, make whatever interior walls that I really want to make sure are visible. So in this case, let's go ahead and just do the whole thing. So we'll go ahead and just kind of start dropping these walls in. Later on, you do have the ability to add in doors, windows, all of those other important structures, so that you can make sure that this room does look accurate. But right now, what I'm doing is kind of going between select and draw walls. Um, this is just the method that I use. There are alternatives. If you're under structures, or there was a button for draw walls. But I just kind of tend to go through and put these in this method. I actually just realized there's a door here, so I can bring that down. We'll go ahead and draw some doors in as well, just so you can kind of see how that works. If I need to, I can separate these walls and make sure that I get, these closets put down like that. And as we go through, as I'm drawing these walls, I can kind of reference now my dollhouse, and I'll see, okay, cool, it's getting the shape, it's getting this put together. Um, this would be the 3D version of this current floor plan. And, if you're getting it to the point where, hey, I'm mostly done with some of these things, in this case, I'm not really, but if I was, there's abilities to go under upload drawing and simply remove that trace feature. So if I just wanted to take that out, I could. Or if now I'm like, okay, I want to put some walls on, I can do that as well. So just to make my doors a little easier to see, I'm going to increase my transparency here. And then I can go to structures where I have some of these other features. So doors, windows, things of that nature are under here. I hit doors, and then I can select my doors and say, okay, this, this door, for example, I want to make sure goes right here. And then because it opens inward, I need to flip it. And I also need to flip it again because the door is opening the other direction. I'm going to just slide it just slightly. It covers that pretty much perfectly now. And again, I could add in the other doors, other pieces of the room. This is a very new feature. So, I'd be really interested to see what sort of feedbacks we do start receiving on this. And there's ways that you can certainly kind of elaborate or expand on this room from here. But for right now, I just wanted to make sure we took a moment to kind of look through just the idea of importing a 2D render and beginning by putting walls, doors, things like that in place before we go into more of the fundamentals of the floor plan tool. So any questions on that? If you
Yeah.
have those, send them over to Katie. I'd be happy to answer those before I go into anything else.
Yeah, there are a few. Thank you so much for walking through this. This is a super exciting feature. I know we've had a lot of questions and requests for this specifically. So
Mhm.
a question from Steph, what thickness does it default to when you're tracing?
That would be our, that's a good question. I was gonna say, let me take a look and see what our normal wall thickness is. It would just be 4 3/4 inch.
Okay. And then
So,
you can adjust it the same way that you can when you're developing a
mhm,
floor plan.
yes.
Okay, great. And then if you accidentally draw a line in there, can you just show how you delete it?
Two ways. If you just did it and you catch it right away, if you click undo, you just take it out. So you don't have to, um, I don't know what I just did, so I'm not sure what my undo is going to do, but um, undo is one of those options, of course. The other one is if you're like, hey, I just need to take this wall out, for example. Once you click on it, it's going to highlight, and you'll see that the color changes. And even if I take my trace mode off, you'll still be able to identify that wall here, and then you can just hit that red trash can button to delete it.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
And there was a question here as well, how you set the wall height. But I think that was in the tab you were just showing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go through those. Like I this was more so I just want to let people see that A, you can now upload a floor plan, and B, the transparency is important so that you can kind of see when you're tracing what's previously there and make sure that that's accurate. Just navigating trace mode, navigating this, you can always rescale things if necessary. And just kind of putting together that was the majority of this part. But we're going to go into another little kind of explanation on 3D floor plans in a second, where we'll look through structures, products, sourcing, and we'll actually put together like a room.
Okay, awesome. I think we're good to continue.
Cool. So what I'm going to do now is just close that tab. And what we're going to do now is kind of put together more of a floor plan that is from scratch, so to speak. First thing I want to just bring to your attention, I'm not going to use a template. I'm just going to put something together down here. But we did also just add in templates fairly recently. If you hadn't really checked this since maybe the beginning of, like, say, April, these would be a new feature for you. And templates are really handy for just getting things started. So templates you click on them, whether it's a kitchen or a bathroom or living room or bedroom. And once you click on it, you're going to see several different options available. Some of these have up to like 8 to 9 options, and or 10 here. And what you can do is preview them. So number one, if you're like, hey, I know I'm going to be doing an L-shaped kitchen, you can just preview it, take a look, say, hey, it is, from a floor plan standpoint, I can always go in and change measurements, change things up. But does this kind of fit the right, room? Whenever you look at it in a dollhouse, you can also evaluate it this way, and this will give it a little bit more style. You can always go back and change colors, again, measurements, flooring, all that stuff. But these are really handy just to kind of get a good starting point done. So this is another thing. If you start using these, have feedbacks, please provide them to your client success managers. But overall, these have been really handy as a new addition. And what we're going to do now is click onto add a floor plan, and we're going to just kind of have one from scratch. So to the designers that are familiar with using this prior to templates, this is generally how everything started for you. And what we're going to do is kind of walk down or look through these from a number one, a button navigation. What does everything mean? Going kind of across the top, going down, and then we'll start making sure that we're kind of connecting that to building out a room. So first things first, just starting kind of at a basic level here. Up here at the top, you'll see in the top left corner, it says Untitled. Untitled is essentially where you can put in your title. So if I'm doing a living room plus kitchen floor plan, I can just type that in. And now my client, if I send it to them, that's what's going to be forward facing for them to see. Or if you have a project name or something else, you can always put that in. But titles are handled up top. Next up are these different navs. So the most common way to actually build a room and to use the tool is the floor plan view. Floor plan view is personally what I find to be the easiest to kind of do for any sort of design. And with the floor plan view, you will basically, or your client will see it from this perspective. We have a dollhouse view, which is going to give you more of a three-dimensional kind of overhead look at that room. And by using your mouse, you can kind of toggle and spin it as you're seeing I'm doing here. Maybe we need to go more bird's eye or more from the side. As you go down sideways, I was going to say a wall will come out so that you have visibility of the room. But these are just the dollhouse view. And last is a walkthrough. And walkthrough is really handy for your clients, I believe, more than anyone else, especially if you're building out I have some 3D floor plans that I've put together over time that are multiple rooms, and it lets somebody walk through from room to room in your renders. And whenever you're sending this to a client, the share option right there is going to send them a link. Personally, I think that's the best way as well to just you make sure your client's receiving this is just as a working link. And that's because if you send it to them as a link versus trying to say, do a print and pull a PDF or something, you're giving them a link where they're able to control between these different views. So a client can view it from a dollhouse and they can move it around themselves. So a client can go into a walkthrough and go through the space. So those are just the three different views up top. And some of the functionality there, whenever your client receives this, they also do get a quick little blurb telling them to view it from different perspectives. Um, so that's what these buttons do up top. Over here to the right of that is our actions button. So this is kind of something where if you need to delete something, you just want to create like a new floor plan. Maybe you just were putting something together, it turned out it was inaccurate. You can always just hit new. It's going to pull up a new one. You basically start from right here again. Print is a way that you can technically save these as like a PDF. So if you needed to, you can always make a PDF of your like floor plan. So that's available within print. And the one I see used and that I hear from my clients specifically about is duplicate. I actually work with quite a few people who will sometimes provide their clients with multiple layouts. Maybe they want to show them just something as basic as a living room where it has a sofa with two accent chairs and it will have a circular coffee table. And then they have a plan that has more of a sectional with a rectangular coffee table and just one accent, or whatever the reasons are. The nice thing about the duplicate button is that if you build the room, if you go through and you put in all the wall dimensions and all of those things first, and then you duplicate, all of those things stick with it. So then when it comes to giving your client a second look, maybe it's a kitchen where you have different island layouts or whatever. Almost all the hard work's already done for you, and you're just kind of putting in products, which is usually the fun part of the rendering. So those are what's available up top here. And the last thing I was going to mention is at the start tutorial, there is a pretty handy tutorial on the floor plans that I definitely advise using. You can start that tutorial up here, and directly below that is a link to our help center. So those are just a few of these different action buttons up top. We already mentioned share, but again, share is how you can get your client the link and then they can see and view this floor plan itself. There is a
One thing I'll jump in with, I know we've gotten this question before, is when you share the link, clients are not able to edit it. It's to a view only for floor plan.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. You would never want that. And yeah, they can't edit this. Mood boards, we're going to discuss those after this. Like they can never edit that when you share it with them. But it's better than a PDF in my opinion, because otherwise you're just providing them a still of whatever you're rendering versus giving them something that they can like have some dynamicness with. So that is those buttons. This thing will autosave. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's been auto-saving for me. Last time was about 5 minutes ago. These will autosave as you're working on them, but you can also just go in and manually save it if you need to. And that's most of the top buttons here. So what we'll go into next are these ones right here, and then we'll take a look through this stuff as we start to put together our room. So to begin with, when you were watching me do the 2D render that I was making into the previous floor plan, there was a lot of navigation for me between drawing walls and the select button. I do that pretty often because it's what makes it easiest, in my opinion, to get out of the draw wall feature. When you're drawing walls, unless you connect the walls, it's going to continue to want to stick in that mode. So if I was just to, I wanted to add a wall, I don't know, say we're adding a wall over here. It still wants to stick in this draw wall mode, and it will until I basically reconnect these walls. So if I was in reality, I'm not sure exactly what this would look like, but if I was adding this room to this room, um, it basically stays in that draw wall feature until the room's connected. And once it did, it snapped back to here. And then with select, that's where I can go through and do some of my styling. But that's what this button does. Next up, to go back down to Zoom, there is a feature for a ruler. So the measurements one is really handy. You'll see as we place items and do some things, there's already like a dynamic ruler that's included. And it helps with like putting things in the right place, making sure you have the right distances to the corners, all of those type of things. But if, maybe we're doing a render and we want to make sure that our island is 4 feet away from our our base cabinets of our kitchen. Ruler's a great way to go in and just click that ruler and manually kind of go through and say, okay, cool, I'm at, right about 4 feet. I just went over it. But you can go in and click it. You can also adjust things. So if I want to measure this down, I could. But the ruler is just, in my opinion, the best way to get more approximation when it comes to, staggering items within a room, making sure you have a certain amount of space between things. So just know that that is available. Next up, I don't see this used a whole lot. Most people just obviously work within feet, but I guess anybody that is on the metric system or imperial system, no, metric system, there is the ability to go between feet and meters. So that's something just to keep an eye on which measurement you're in. Zoom to center is handy because zoom to center is going to basically bring you back to a view so that you have, whether it's one room, multiple rooms, whatever the case, it gives you back to like the center of the space. So if you're zoomed in and working on something up here on this side of the room, you hit zoom to center and it just pops you right back out versus having to, zoom out and then click and move around. Again, it's not maybe used every single time you're going to do a render, but there are circumstances where that is going to be a little bit handy and just a one click to get you right back to where you want to be for your 3D. And then really, the last two things here are zoom in and zoom out. So those are the primary navs that you're going to use up here. There is an undo button and there's a redo. So undo and redo is how you can, hey, I made a mistake 2 things ago, click a couple things back, or hey, I need to have that measurement back, whatever it is. But those just make it easy to kind of jump between as you're doing things on the render. So what we're going to hop into next is structures and start actually putting some things together with this room. I might take some of this out, but if there's any questions, I'll answer those. And if not, then I'm going to hop right into structures.
Okay, great. We do have a few questions.
Okay.
Can you do uneven walls?
Uneven.
I would guess that means like 2 walls of different heights next to each other.
Yes. Well, so with walls, I don't know if this answers your question exactly, but this is a good chance to show this. So if I have a pony wall that's coming off of here for whatever reason, I can click on that and I can definitely change that height. So if I'm like, hey, the rest of my walls in this space are actually, this is a 9-foot wall, for example, but I need this wall to be 3 foot 2 inches. Then I can absolutely do that. And I can separate those things. And then, it would look as if I have a much shorter wall amongst the other walls.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then can you give some examples of what you might include with that load button?
So load is just to load your other floor plans.
Okay.
So if you had other floor plans, you could pull those up and load them quickly.
Okay, and then I think just one last question. If you share a link, are clients able to view it on mobile?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different, it does look a little different than on a desktop, but they are able to view it.
Okay, great. I
So
think we can keep going.
cool. Awesome. So basically, I do think I saw one chat where, yeah, so the one thing we don't include is, I guess with uneven walls, I don't have the ability to make it so that this wall gradually increases from like 8 feet over here to 9. It would look pretty staggered if you try to do it because you could manually create something like that, but it would be a little bit rough. There's not really anything like that currently with the software.
Okay. And I do see the follow-up there on vaulted ceilings. So ceilings, we don't have at the moment, but they should be out within the next month or so. We're really actively working on those right now.
Yep. Perfect. Well, we're going to start doing some things with these walls and a few other things here in a second. I did want to let you know as well that just in case this ever becomes useful, or if this is something you need as you're coming up with estimates or anything like that, we also do give you measurements so that hey, this wall area is 176 square feet. You'll always kind of be able to get those. So if you click on a certain wall, you'll be able to see exactly what those are, and they're carried here at the bottom. So what we're going to next take a look at is basically some styling. So on the topic of walls, we looked at height. We looked at the ability to change height between walls. Next thing we're going to do is hit dollhouse. And in dollhouse is where you have the ability to give these walls a little bit more life. So if I click on a wall, and I'm in the dollhouse view, you'll see two things come up that were not previously there when I was in floor plan. The first is color, and the second is finish. Finish primarily at the moment is tile focused. So if you have a bathroom project that's going on, finishes are perfect if you need to put in tile in a shower, or tile, maybe there's a whole tile wall, whatever the case is. There's a lot of examples that you can use. You hit select material, you'll see a really huge catalog of tile. I've tried one time, you can just keep scrolling, it will continue to load. There's a lot of stuff in here. I do recommend, if you can, or if you kind of already have an idea of what's going to be used, you can search either by a type of tile or like maybe a dimension, and that will just maybe save a little time. But the search products up top helps kind of get through this tile library so you can get the right looking tile included if needed, or right wall finish. But beyond that, we also have two different huge paint catalogs. So when you click on the button right here for color, that's where we're choosing our different colors. We currently work with both Benjamin Moore and Sherwin-Williams on providing these colors. And if you were to, put one on, these actually are kind of comparable to what's already on the wall. Maybe I want to do something else. Yeah, you can go ahead and put those on. Do not judge too hard. I am not a designer by any means, but you can go ahead and put those on. And now I have this like neutral-ish color for my walls. But walls in general, you can go through lots of catalogs, take a look, find whatever is correct, and make sure that that gets placed on the walls. So that is just looking at wall color. Dimensions are handled up top. So if I did need to make a change, maybe this is a 22-foot wall, I can go through and do that. Beyond that, the thickness of the wall can be adjusted. You do have control over which side of the wall. It's rare to see wall. Well, it depends. I mean, if you're doing a room where you have rooms beyond on the other side, you can do this. Generally, if it's just a one room render that you're doing, just keeping it on the interior wall is the one that matters. And you'll always know which wall dimensions you're controlling based on what's highlighted in blue. So the walls, the only other thing that I was going to mention with these is that right now we have this set up so that anytime you're making adjustments, the adjustments are handled on both ends. So if I were to add 4 feet and make this a 26-foot wall, what it would do is add 2 feet to the left side of this room and 2 feet to the right side of this room. By default, it is always going to apply changes in your dimensions equally. So if you do run into a situation where you need to make an adjustment and it's more so just one side being shifted, you can always just click to apply a change to just one end of the wall. But overall, that's pretty much all there is with the walls, the dimensions, the colors. Dollhouse is how you can make those adjustments and make it look really nice. And the height of the walls is controlled right here in the structure center. So walls are always kind of enabled, so to speak. If you come in here, you'll always see the height. And next thing that we'll go into is our doors. So earlier you did see me put a door on. When it comes to doors and any of these other products, ultimately the way that these are placed is that you go through, you click on what you need. So we're going to start with doors here, and then we can just scroll. If there's a certain door that has the correct look, whether it's something that's maybe pre-existing or something that's part of the design, make sure that you're getting that included. We have a lot of different options, a lot of sliding doors, a lot of modern doors, interior doors, all those types of things. I mean, there's a very large selection to look through. Um, and when you find the one that you like, you can go ahead and click on it. It's going to bring it right here to the middle of your render. And then once you click on it here, that's where you'll see the other dimensions. So earlier I was mentioning there's a dynamic ruler that kind of helps with placements. This is what I was referring to here. And if I was to put this in the room, I can put this in. The door itself is showing up as 36 inches wide, and I can put that in and kind of bring it into the right spot of the room. So if I want this to be closer to about 4 feet off of this wall, I can kind of bring that in. It's not quite exact four; it's 4 3/16 of an inch. You can always kind of get more approximate with it, but this is kind of a method or how those are placed on. And then once you have it over there, you can take a look at some of the other things that you can customize. So the one thing I would make sure to, or that I do want to mention, is that when it comes to 36 inches wide on this door, that is including the whole render. So that door dimension, this door right here, that does include the trims on the side. So 36 inches would be from trim to trim, and 82 inches tall. If you have to make changes, you can always do that right here. And if you want to give this door some more customization, there's the ability to put colors on it. You can always select finish, choose paint color, or you can choose just more of a natural wood tone. And then from there, you can also even include things like hardware. So if we need this door to have a certain color doorknob, or the door in general just needs to be a certain color, we can put that on there. But that's kind of looking at the door piece there. Windows are below that. Again, these have a very, very similar approach where you kind of go through and find what is accurate. There's a lot of different renders that you can choose from. But once you find whatever it is, you can click on it, gets it back to the middle of the room. I can kind of go about fixing it where I want it to be. And then at that point, I can choose again a finish. So if I want this to have the same color for some reason as the door, I can do that. If I wanted to have, the handles and all that stuff to be a certain color as well, I can do that too. And then when I come back and look at this, I would see that my window has been placed in here. The windows carry door dimension changes as well, so you can always make updates to this. In case the width is incorrect and you need to make that adjustment, you can. If the height's incorrect, you need to make that adjustment, you can as well. You have the ability to put on things like our picture windows, which are, let me see where those got moved to. We've updated some stuff. Window pictures. I've seen plenty of designers do things with window pictures where maybe they need to make a window that's basically floor to ceiling. More than welcome to do that. You can bring the distance to the floor to 0. You can adjust the height to be as tall as the wall. And at that point, you're going to have, I'll just do 1 inch off the ground. Let's just do 96 inches or something. That might be close to right. And it's a little short, but and then you can basically simulate windows that are covering the whole space. But that is also certainly available. It's just something where you go back, you find what you would need, whether it's arch windows or more rectangular casements, whatever the case is, put them into the space that they need to go into. Once they're there, you can go about making the adjustments to make this as accurate as you need to. Beyond that, we do carry staircases. Now, staircases, for example, are, there's a lot of customization that can be put into these. So if I wanted to, I'm not going to leave this in my render, but just so that we can see it, if I wanted to bring in, say, this L-shaped metal wood soffit staircase, I can click on that. Once I do, again, this can be fixed to wherever it needs to go in the room. You can always kind of view it and make sure, hey, this does look right. You can adjust things like the height. This staircase's height was built off of basically was assuming it was an 8-foot room. So if I needed to, or 8-foot walls, so if I needed to, I could bring those up. And then at that point, the staircase and basically where it meets the ceiling or the top of the wall would line up right. And beyond that, there is a lot of things that you can make changes to. So if we wanted to provide railing finish, if we wanted to provide uh, the baluster finish, we can have our, and there's risers, the soffit, the treads, everything here can be customized. And, basically, and that's just putting on only one thing with the honey brown. But basically, you can get these to look really, really nice. You just kind of have to go through and get them styled out so that it, you know, is accurate to what you're using. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, but the staircases, again, have a lot of different options: straight staircases, spirals, more traditional L-shaped or U-shaped, I should say. We started with the L-shaped. The U-shapes are at the bottom. There's really elegant, like Victorian looking ones. So traditional, transitional, Victorian, modern, there's all sorts of stairs to kind of go through. And those are also a really fantastic add-in. We'll kind of scroll through these a little quicker. Wall partitions. Um, Wall partitions are, again, something that you can kind of drop in if you need to. These are things that will oftentimes, if you need to add in wall partitions around like a home office or whatever it is, you can put those in. You can basically put those so that they're all, snapping together. They do snap together if you choose to put these, side by side, and they, give you the wall partitions that you would need. You can change colors. So if you're changing colors, it can adjust like door handle, or not handles, but like the surrounding of the window. You can change the dimensions of these, and the depth. So those are a couple of different things that you can do with the wall partitions. And we carry like frosted versions, metal framed with, square panel versions, a handful of different options to look through. Fireplaces are also a relatively new feature on Houzz. So these fireplaces are basically things that you can also drop in and fix. They snap onto the walls. And this one's more of a modern one that's kind of fit about halfway up. You can adjust things like the distance to the flooring, again, the finish. If we wanted to make this for some reason a really dark brown, that's how that would look. We have the ability to also take these and adjust their height, their depth, and the distance to the floor with this one, since it's wall mounted. The other ones obviously just start at the floor. But these are also a really new, and like, for doing a living room, for example, obviously it would come into play quite often. So these are just dropped in. This one I'm going to rotate because it's not wall mounted. I just got to fix it there. Get it against my wall. There we go. Choose my finish. Again, and then you would have this looking thing. So that's looking at our fireplaces. Wall openings. Wall openings are very handy as well if you need to put in like an interior door frame, door frames with columns, an arched version, arched traditional versions. We have a lot of different choices with these also. So let's say that we do actually have a wall opening, a more traditional one, and it's on like this wall. I just bring it over. Right now it's 70, it's basically 7 feet wide. And if I wanted to give that some color, maybe I want to make this a white one, for example. I can go ahead and do that. And then this is how that would look. It'd be a white one, a white, basically door frame. And whenever you're building out a larger room, it is kind of handy to be able to navigate between rooms and walk through the frames. You can always adjust these dimensions later on if you need to. But that's kind of just a quick look at our wall openings. And then the last thing that was really recently added here is columns. So with columns, fairly self-explanatory, but you kind of can bring in whatever you need. Maybe we have a dining room that's situated off of the door right here, or wherever it would be. And basically, that's how that would look. Just a plain tapered one. Let me move us over here in the room so we can kind of look at it back this way. So that's kind of how that would look. And then at the end of the day with these columns, again, the customization is there. Everything that you can use, you can always pretty much adjust dimensions on, finishes, all those types of things. So we're going to go ahead and just delete that. But columns, if you need them, if they're pre-existing in the space you're designing, you can make sure that you get those in there and it looks accurate. So the last thing I'm going to discuss on structures before we move to the products is the flooring. Flooring is, in my opinion, what really makes these 3D floor plans look great. And I don't really know why I saved it for last, but it's something that I always do in the structures before I'd move to products. So flooring is as easy as clicking on a floor. It will highlight blue. You'll get your measurements, so you'll know what your areas are and your perimeters, which is really handy. But you'll also be able to hit select flooring right here. And from there, you can choose whatever flooring you need. So there's plenty of things that you can kind of look through, you know, from more gray flooring to more of the traditional looking parquet floors, lots of different things. You drop one in. At that point, you'll now see this flooring in this room. And if we needed to with our flooring, we can also go back and now that we have it on there, we'll see the different options with our flooring. So if I needed to adjust the rotation, I could. The rotation that you're seeing of these blue lines is not the flooring's actual rotation. The rotation at the moment is, as you can kind of tell, 0 degrees is just horizontal, perfectly horizontal. So just be aware that that is not the actual rotation. To view that, you do need to go to Dollhouse to take a look and see it more with a more realistic look. But you can adjust plank size, and we are even increasing some of these. So there are floorings that include 5 and 6 and 7 and up plank sizes. As that's getting more and more common, we've added that in, and you can adjust the finish. And you can also, as I was mentioning, adjust the rotation. So when it comes to structures, that is the majority of what I wanted to cover: the walls, the floors, the doors and windows, as well as these additional pieces here. I wanted to pause and see what type of questions you got for me, Katie, if there are any.
Yes, awesome. So we have a lot of questions here. So one question from Karen is that sometimes when she tries to put in a staircase going down to a lower level, it's like floating above on the ground.
Hmm.
Um, do you have any suggestions for fixing that?
Yeah, I will be honest. In my opinion, the staircases are meant more to show going up. They're not as friendly to go down towards like a basement. Even if you change like the depth of it to make it almost look like it's just flat and you have a staircase that's there, it still doesn't really render it in quite as well. That is actually a feedback I've sent along, and I think that our team at least has seen that feedback before, where positioning a staircase that's going down as opposed to up. So I think that's more so something that'll have to almost get adjusted a bit, because what I was discussing, like if you change some of the height and those type of things, you can kind of make it look at least like a staircase like going down, but it doesn't. It's still, I don't know if I would say it does it as much justice as the renders whenever you're going up in a space.
Okay, awesome. And then a few sizes on trim. Like what is the trim size and if you can change the size and the style?
Yeah, at the moment, there's no trim options. I know that that's something as well that our team is looking at getting incorporated. But right now, the walls do not include any trim with the flooring.
Okay. Um, and is there a way that you would suggest to draw for a sunken space, just down a few steps?
Um, that kind of is similar with like the idea of with like the staircase, or even like if in some examples like a ranch home with like a split level or something, those don't necessarily translate perfectly within the software either, in my opinion. I don't like There's no way to really show like an elevation change between the room, because the flooring is going to keep everything on the same level essentially. So that's not something that I can really do a great job of showing, to be
Okay.
honest. Hmm.
And I do know that elevations is something that we've gotten feedback on, so it's in the plans for later in the year.
Hmm.
Um, so is there a way to make the walls stop drawing if you don't want it to connect? Um, if you don't
Yeah,
want the
that's
wall to
where I
fully
was.
connect?
Absolutely. So earlier on, that's kind of what I was referring to when I was saying that you would go between the draw wall feature and the select button. So if I just needed, I'm just going to draw a wall for no reason. Like if I was just drawing a wall and I needed to go right there, but I don't want to connect it to anything else. To get out of there, I just hit the select button, so this little arrow, and that takes that out, and then or takes that draw feature off, and now I'm back to being able to do whatever I need to do.
Okay,
Hmm.
awesome. There have been a few questions about whether you can import your own products or your own tile.
Mm-mm. No,
Yeah,
no
so at
importing on any of that. We have.
yeah, at the moment not.
Mm-mm.
But we do have, and Chris will get into the source products, which are from
Yeah.
our house marketplace.
Yep. Exactly.
Just a few more questions here. Can you show tile going halfway up the wall versus a full wall?
Yeah. If you wanted to do that, I'm gonna. I actually am gonna spend some time on kitchens because those typically
Okay.
will. Kitchens are something where if you can master doing a kitchen on here, you can do anything else on here pretty easily. I would do a backsplash almost, and then just manually make the dimensions on it, whatever you need it to be. Because yeah, if you do it from the wall feature, it's the whole thing. There's no way to control that. But if you just put the backsplashes have the same catalog or library of tile to select from, and you could put one on and then put it to like 60 inches or whatever you need.
Okay, great. And then I think just one more. When you do that, the square foot function, does it remove the area of windows and doors?
No, it still doesn't. Or actually, yes, it does now. Sorry, for I thought for some reason it didn't, but yeah, it actually does. So right here, we're at the measurement on this wall. Um, that's subtracting a door. This one would be taking out a window.
Okay.
So that's why there's a
Okay.
slight difference on those, but otherwise they're the same 22-foot wall.
Okay, great. Let's keep
Mhm.
going, and then I'm sure we'll have other questions.
Cool. So yeah, so what we'll do now is take a look at the products. So again, don't judge too hard if this design makes very little sense in terms of like an actual space. But what we're going to do is hit generic products, and you're going to see a lot of the different categories that you have to choose from. Categories are the different types of rooms, electrical, all sorts of different things. Some of these are lighting. We also carry some different just plants, pet needs, instruments, all sorts of different products and different things that you can kind of look through. And what we'll do today is kind of begin with like say to start, I'll actually just do like a living room product. So with that, the reason I want to pull in like a living room product, so say we do a chase, just to kind of put that in there. So if I put a chase in, I wanted to do that. So number one, you can kind of get an idea of this is what a Houzz product looks like from a generic product standpoint. It's a pretty much just basic render here. Um, and what you can control with this render is things like the dimension. So if you need to make this wider, you can. If you need to adjust the height, you can. If you need to adjust the depth of the seat or the chase itself, you can do that too. So these control the different dimensions. Below that is the fabric. So if these need a specific fabric, maybe the client's working with something that's more of this color. At that point, actually, that one's way too obvious or close to what it was. So if they need a pink fabric, just to make this stand out more, you could put that on there. And then at this point, the chase is going to be pink. Um, Generic products, if you take pretty much anything that you're working with, you have the ability to adjust fabrics. Some of them may not have fabrics, but you have the ability to adjust like the stains. A dining table you can change from a darker brown or onyx to a more just maple color or whatever you need. But you have the ability to kind of drop products in and change finishes, fabrics, all sorts of different things with these generic Houzz products. The other thing I was going to mention is that when I was saying earlier, you can move these. So if this is a coffee table, if I'm putting that coffee table right here, I can, and at this point, I probably don't need that there. But if you're putting in a coffee table and I want to have this maybe 3 feet away from my chase, I don't know what would be, but like, you can just see with the ruler how close and or how far away you were getting from the chase as well as from the wall. And then you also get your other dimensions from the other walls. So that's a really handy piece of dropping in products. And what I would really encourage people to do is just kind of look through, lots of different options. Every type of room has a lot of things that you can choose from that are defaults. And to give you kind of a good example with the source that we'll go into a little more in a second, if I was to put on, like, say, for example, Houzz wide dresser, again, I can control things like my finish. Finish in this case would be my handles. Um, or sorry, my finish would be the frame itself. My hardware finish would be the handles. So I could make this, I don't know, a dark colored dresser with silver handles. I feel like that's kind of a normal, common thing to see. But you could do that. And then, of course, make sure that, hey, if maybe I'm ordering this dresser, it's coming from France and Sons or something, and in reality, it's 64 inches. You can always just make adjustments like that and make sure that your spacing is accurate. In our source library, we'll spend a little more time in this later, but just so you can kind of get a good idea, this is where you can pull in products that we do sell. And with these products, these are things that are on Houzz's marketplace. And if you were to drop one in, that's where you'll kind of get an idea of saying, okay, this is actually, this specific render. This desk or this dark oak dresser right here is this one right there, and they look one for one. So just in case though you are working with somebody, you have a product that's something you're buying through Houzz, or just a product that that you're using that looks a lot like this product that's on Houzz, you can always drop in the sourced ones if you feel like that provides a little bit better realism. So besides, kind of looking through these, what we'll look at now is like doing a kitchen. So as I was saying, I felt like if you can do a kitchen on Houzz, there's really no room that you can't do. And with the kitchen, if we were to drop in there, you click on it, you're going to see that kitchens are actually divided up again. So not only do you click into kitchens and you see all the different subcategories, you click on those, and then you see all the options available within them. Personally, I always start with like a base cabinetry. I've had some designers over time tell me that you always got to start with the sink. So let's go down and scroll to a sink. That's just muscle memory, so that's why I can kind of do that. But if you ever like, there are filters too. So if you need to filter and just filter by a sink, go ahead and do that. And then at this point, you'll see the different sink renders that we have to use. So if I have maybe I'm doing a 42-inch undermount, I can go ahead and put that in, put that against the wall. Maybe this door is really over there or something, but I don't know. Put that against the wall. Once it snaps on the wall and we have it where we want it to be, at that point now I can go through and start to customize. The cabinets have a lot of things that you can adjust. So if I wanted to make this, kind of something that you'll see fairly often, we can always go to, like, say, a shaker style kitchen or something. There's a lot of different cabinets to choose from. So you can take a look, but there's a really good number of these different cabinet options so that you can make these look right. You click the one that you want to use. You can then select a finish. So much like we were doing with some of our other products, this fundamental is the same. So we select a finish, whether it be a color. So maybe we need to put on I don't know, like some sort of blue cabinet or something. We do that. We can choose our countertop. So countertops, you'll see we do carry quite a few different ranges of countertops too. I go through and find whatever it is that's right. So let's say that we have some expensive taste. We're doing the marble. We're selecting an edge. Edges are also things that you have ability to kind of select or go between different options on. But once you select the edge that you like, you click there. And then from here, that's going to open up another option for overhangs. The overhang by default is 7/8 of an inch, which is the more traditional overhang you're going to find. But just on the off chance actually really, to be honest, this section's, in my opinion, mostly for islands. So if you have an island and you're building out an island and you need to make sure that your countertop has space for stools to slide underneath of it, you can adjust the countertop's overhang off of an island and extend it by, say, 12 or 14 inches or whatever, 16. And then whenever you're adjusting these and adding on that, um, as you do it, you'll see where the countertop really is like populating. But don't be surprised if you have to make an adjustment and actually, make the overhang come off the left side or the back or little things like that. So that's just kind of looking at the counters. The last thing to customize here is the hardware. So I have the ability to kind of select and make sure I have the right type of hardware on here. So if this, I'll just keep it basic, do a cylinder. At this point, I'll go ahead and put my brushed metal on it. And if I'm good with, I have a single basin, maybe I need it to be a double basin. You can always adjust that. Hey, I messed up. It's really a farmhouse style or drop in. You can change that up at this point too, if you needed to. And then one other thing I really like is the ability to adjust your faucets. For some reason or another, I feel like that really helps make these look more polished. So if we needed to put this in and make it a more traditional two-handle looking faucet, you'll see that even on the floor plan level, this just changed. And we now have two little handles, a faucet there. And if I go back to my dollhouse and take a look or my walkthrough, I'm going to now see that I have this cabinet in place. I'm going to expand on this and keep adding to it right now. But basically, the core fundamentals of putting these together stay like that. So what we'll do is let me go back to my floor plan and go to kitchen products. So we'll start with like an appliance. So lots of cool appliance options as well. Back to, again, if as a designer, you got to make sure you get your dishwasher, keep that plumbing easy. So let's go ahead and put that up against the wall too. Now that I have my dishwasher on there, if you needed to, you can adjust the dimensions on those, though they're kind of more standard, but you can do that. And then at this point, I can continue my countertop and I can continue I think it was eased. Yeah. So then at that point, now I have my countertop with this on it too. So for the sake of time, I'll add in a few more base cabinets just to kind of fill this in. But I'm going to do it in a slightly quicker method. So what we'll do is hit on base cabinets. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of select something kind of at random here. Once I do that, I can then fix it to my wall. And again, I get the ability to change things like the style, the color. So in this case, I used a blue, I think it was this one. I want to get my countertop back on, so I want to put that on here, and then get my bevel on, get my hardware. These are cylinders that I was using, and then I chose the brushed metal, and now I have this cabinet looking consistent with the one with the sink. Now at this point, it would take time to continue to update those things every single time. Sinks and the first cabinet you make generally do have to be done separately because sinks can't really convert on a duplication. But at this point, if I wanted to, I can duplicate this. And whether I have the same cabinet and I just want to drop it in, and there are corner cabinets, I would recommend using that so it looks better. But you can just put it in right next to it. So if I know that this needs to go in here, I can. Or if I'm like, hey, this actually needs to change. It's 30, this one down here is only 33 inches. And you can make those changes to them. And then one other really handy thing is that when you do change dimensions, some of these dimensions will come with other configurations. So if you ever need to, maybe I want to make this a one, basically one regular 2 deep drawer. So this cabinet is now a more drawer based. You can go ahead and slide that in. So as you go through and kind of build this out, again, I would really use like a corner cabinet. There are corner cabinet options, but you start to get this put in, and now all of a sudden we're starting to get some good cabinetry placed in here. So that's just kind of looking at cabinets. We'll take a look at some of these other features next. So let me see. Katie, do you have any questions for me? Do you want me to go through and go into finishing out some of these things?
Let me just see if there are any specific questions. I know we don't have a ton of time left, so we may have to follow up with some of these
Sure.
questions afterwards. So I think you could probably
Perfect.
just keep going for now.
Cool. So all I wanted to mention otherwise with appliances is that there's refrigerator options. So if you need to, you can put your fridges in. You can put in cooktops. There are range hoods. There are all sorts of different things that you can kind of choose from and place in. All of these things that you're dropping in have the ability to have you adjust their dimensions. And as you're just doing these appliances, base cabinets, islands can be placed in. You have the ability to drop in wall cabinets and put those, correct distance from the floor, correct colors, correct style of door, hardware, all those things. And as you build this out, one question that came in earlier was about like the partial tiles or backsplash. You can add in backsplash options. You click on there, you put it to the wall you want it to be at, and then you adjust the dimensions again. You just type those in, make sure that you get it covering the right amount of wall space, select your tile. All those type of things can be done in the product section. And really, it's if you can get down the ability to just make your changes here, duplicate to save yourself time when applicable. It's really just one that knowing those core fundamentals makes it so you can really navigate just about any other part of these products. Then we're going to look at source really fast too. So if there was lighting that we wanted to drop in, maybe we want to put in lights that are above an island, you can drop those in. You just click on them, place them wherever you need them to be. Again, you can adjust the different dimensions. The it kind of just populate right there. I don't remember what I put in there, but oh, that was the backsplash thing. But you can do that as well and make those go in. So you have lighting, and you also have all the way down to just if you're looking to source. Some things that I see other designers doing is just adding in wall art, adding in accent pieces, adding in mirrors. All of those little details can go a long way. And as you kind of build these out, again, the more attention and detail you spend on it, I'll pull up one of the other renders I've done. But basically, you can get yourself to a point where you're providing your client with, I messed up layering my rugs, but otherwise, a room that looks pretty clean. And you have your art, your wall, your lighting. I have my kitchen over here. This one I did a slightly different type of kitchen and countertop, all that type of stuff. My bar stools. But this is really, this is more of a condo or small home layout. Your built-ins, all of these kind of features can be included, and it's a good mix of generic products and sourcing to bring this to kind of the point where it's at here. So we're going to move to mood boards in a moment. That will wrap up majority of the 3D floor plans. Anything else here, Katie, before I go over to that?
No, I think let's go over, and then if we have time at the end, we can come back to your questions. If we don't have
Perfect.
chance to answer them right now, then we will follow up afterwards as well with answers.
Perfect. So mood boards, these I can certainly get through a little quicker. I don't feel like there's quite as much to master within the mood boards. And mood boards are really handy because number one, they can be a building block to a project. So one thing that these mood boards connect to is your room planners. If you do select a project in a room for it to connect to. If you just want to put a mood board together and not have it connected, you can do that as well. So you just have it listed under none, hit OK, and you can just make one. So I'm going to go ahead and have this connected so that it makes sense with the room planner stuff we'll cover in a moment. I already made a project just called Design Academy. I put a room in there called the living room. At that point, we just hit OK. And what we're going to see is our mood board section. So kind of, again, to go through a little bit of just the navigations. The mood boards themselves are, up at the top is our title, much like the 3D renders. You click there if you want to change that title. Right next to the title is our graph, or basically our resource center. So we have a YouTube video that's embedded here that you can watch. I think it's only about 4 or 5 minutes, and it really kind of explains how to do these also. But that's one thing that you can choose to do. And if not, there's also a couple links there and a tour, and the tour just kind of breaks these things down too. Over here is again a duplicate option, new, all those type of things. You have the ability to share this. You just put in the client's email and you can send it to them. You can just share that mood board with your message and your subject title. or you can just copy a link and send them a link if you prefer doing that. And then there's the load and share. Load, much like 3D renders, loads other room planners you've done in the past. Save is what just saves it. It's going to auto save, but in case you want to just manually save it, you can do that too, just to be double sure. So that's kind of the buttons up top. Next, what we're looking at is some different kind of options on how to work with the room planner, or the mood board. So first is photos. Now these are your own photos from your own library. So these photos, when it says upload, I'd be uploading from my own hard drive. If I have an idea book and I've worked with the client on that idea book and we have a photo that I want to include here, I could drop that on too. Um, but basically photos is how you pull photos from idea book or from your own hard drive. Floor plans, if, hey, I wanted to include this floor plan on my render, I can drop that in if I choose to. There is the ability to control that and have floor plans on there. Right here is color. So color is for swatches. So if I wanted to put in swatch, maybe we're doing a Reverie Pewter, for example, as a trim. I can put that on. And I can even use this text button to identify that. So if I want to make sure my client is aware that that is trim, I can type in trim and put that right underneath. If I wanted to put in another color, another swab for this, maybe that's our wall color. And at that point, the client can see both of these fairly easily. Um, Select is just your normal mouse, normal nav. Pan allows you to just kind of move around. With it at this size, there's really not a need for that, but there are different sizes that we'll look at. Zoom to center, very similar functionality as our last one. There's the zoom in, zoom out. There is a draw feature. So in case you want to draw your own, I don't know what it would be, but if you have something that you need to draw, there is a pencil icon that you can use, and you can even adjust the size of what you're drawing there. So the size is right here, and the draw button is right there. There's a shapes button. So if we needed to include, hey, that this, the most common time I've seen is if we're trying to kind of make sure the client is familiar with like the flow of the room, you can drop those in. And then the ruler tool is the last one there. And that's just basically where you can put in, hey, if we'll use the ruler to show a rug measurement or something. But that's what these are up there for. And then once we're back to our nav, our select, the only things left are that we can adjust our background color. So if there is a certain color that we want this to be, sometimes it's just, I don't want it to be this I want to make it slightly warmer colored or whatever, slightly off white. Whatever the case is, you can always adjust the backgrounds, whether it's by using this color index there, or if it's just by going and choosing a color from like, Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams, you can do that. And then the last thing here is the size. The size is something that you can adjust. So if we need to make this wider screen, we need to make this letter, there's all the dimensions provided here, and you can just adjust these to whatever you need them to be. So that's looking up at the top there. Now we're going to add just a few things to this. So number one, I'm sure you guys have had plenty of training and or explanation on the Houzz Pro Clipper. If you use that Houzz Pro Clipper, any item that you are sourcing into a project and into a room specifically will automatically show up in that mood board. So when I created this mood board, I chose a project, I chose a room. I already taken some time to source products into that room. I wouldn't have to navigate my library at all. I would just simply hit project items and put those items on here. In this case, I didn't do that, so I got to go to my library. First thing up here is that is my logo, so don't be confused. I don't know why I put a best of housing there. Most of the time you'd see, business's logo go on here. And with that logo, you can put it into place. And as you can see, it's slightly different than that other background. So if I remove background, then, it fades everything else in. So if I had, a really different colored background here, it sticks there. Versus if I restore background, it keeps that frame there. So just be aware that that is how that works. And what we'll look at then next is putting in product. So we'll just drop a couple things in so that we can kind of make sure that this is something that people feel comfortable using. So if I put in a product here, so say, for example, this sectional, what I do is I can put it on. I can adjust the size, so I can basically make it as big or as small as I would like for it to be. And then the other options you're going to see are duplicate. If I had two chairs, and I might as well just put them both in, I can just duplicate it and then put them in and flip them to be the right directions. Flip is what will flip the image literally. So if I want to have this more of the left facing versus the right facing, I could do that. Cropping is more so like an actual cropping of the photo to maybe have just a certain part of it show. And then skewing is something we'll look at with a rug because it makes a little bit more sense whenever you skew like a rug or something underneath a product. But that's just kind of like you find what you need, whether it's in your items or your library. You can always search as well and get to a more kind of narrowed down product list. But you can put those on. We'll go ahead and just say maybe we want to do like a rug search. Oops. Oh, so we'll go ahead and place this on. And like for skewing, this is a trick I've just kind of picked up over time. Say if I want to make sure that I have this kind of placed underneath that product, first thing I can do is click this back button. That's going to put this now on top. And then from skewing, that's where I can hit skew. It's going to kind of identify my four corners. And basically I can kind of adjust these to make their property look a little different. Some designers I work with are just unbelievably talented at skewing and make these look so realistic. I'm not quite as good. But ultimately, you can give it a feel as if this is really more so on top of that rug. You can place your coffee table, you can layer these up. So if you prefer to do a mood board like that, you can. Skew is how you can do that. If you prefer to do a more traditional mood board, it's just dropping the products in. But really, these are fairly quick to understand and pick up once you start using them. The biggest hurdle is to make sure that you do have products in your library that you're familiar with clipping, putting them in, and understanding that process. But any questions on mood boards? I know I went through it a lot faster, obviously, than floor plans, but um, oh, and there's a source. I should have mentioned that there is our product library. So if you need to pull in products from Houzz, you can do that without having to clip those products in the first place.
Okay, awesome. One question that came up earlier, can you maybe take a minute and talk about the difference between the 3D floor planner and takeoffs?
Yeah. Takeoffs. So takeoffs really are just taking a floor plan and using it to make measurements. Right after we look at our room planner, I'm going to do a quick takeoff so that you can see it in real
Okay,
time.
great.
But a 3D floor plan is a rendering that you're building to send to your client to give them more of an idea of what the space is looking like. Like the 3D floor plan tool isn't really going to give you like a dollar amount that project's going to take. And it really is going to be difficult to use a floor plan just to really to kind of get to that estimate. Whereas takeoffs, you just take the floor plan and it allows you to measure and make your space and create an estimate straight from it.
Okay, great. And then I know there have been some questions coming up about the background remover. So right now we have an automatic background remover that we are working on improving. And then we are going to be launching a manual background remover shortly. But yeah, as Chris just clicked, you can remove and restore the background
Yeah.
through that button.
Like, and I do recommend if you can, when you're using the clipper, if it will, I'm guessing this was already covered, but try to clip products where you don't have a whole lot else going on in the image. Sometimes you do need to switch like between the thumbnail images and select one that has, this one basically has nothing under it. It's just a gray background that they set with this photo. Whenever you hit remove, it gets almost everything except maybe that little space that's right underneath like the couch itself between that and the floor. Um, but if you have if this picture had like a kitchen and a lot of stuff going on otherwise, it does have a little bit more difficulty really making it concise on what you're removing.
Okay, great.
Cool. So, and yeah, and mood boards again, you can just share them, you can send them out. And the other cool thing with these mood boards is we're going to actually go into our project now. So I'm going to hit the project, my mood board. It's going to be right here. And it also is going to exist within my project. So I just wanted to let you see that you don't necessarily have, like if you're building a mood board and you start it by going to manage and going to our mood boards here and you create one for a project, once you've built it, it's going to be within the project under the mood board tab. So, and yeah, if there's any other questions, we could go over those at the end. What we'll hop into now is our room planner. Now my room planner is right above the mood board. So right here in the project section, we have our room planner. You'll see that I already have a living room built as my room. And that is because when I created the project, I selected a living room as one of the rooms we're doing. So basically with this living room, I can click on it to start it. Once I open it up, we will see one really kind of nice shortcut, so to speak, is that if I did start with a mood board like I did, where I had my, I guess there's only two products, but I started with a mood board as opposed to starting with my project items. If for some reason you find yourself in that circumstance, the product items that you have on your mood board do show up in your room planner. So you don't have to go back and look through your library or try to find those any other way. So your project items now are the ones from that mood board. So these will either be mood board items or items that you use the clipper for. But either way, there is like a connection there between the room planners and the mood boards so that it is really just handy and you're not spending a ton of time going back into libraries or doing any of that stuff. So just know if you build a room planner first, you go to your mood board. As long as you select the appropriate project and room, all your items are right there. If you start with the mood board and then you go back to the room planner to get everything approved on like more of a budget level, same idea. They're all going to be here in your project items. Other things that I want to make sure we take a look at while we're here. Number one is that there's this eye icon. That's where you can give this room planner a little bit more customization. So for example, this section right there, that is for my cover photo. So if I hit there and hit add cover, I can go in and put a cover picture in here. So if there's like a certain, photo that I want to use, hypothetically, say if we wanted to put some, like a picture on there, um, you can do that. And then that will now be kind of the cover image here. And if I was in my room planner section and come back just so you can kind of see that, that's how that would look. And then the nice thing is that if you're, working with a client, these are on a dashboard. If you have multiple rooms, each room would have the, the correct photo on it, which just kind of makes it look a little bit nicer. The other things that you can do here within this eye icon are assign it. So if you need to assign this to a team member, you do it right there. You can assign it out. And at that point, whenever items are approved or items are declined, or a client comments on an item, your team member and you are both notified. If team members aren't assigned to the items or assigned to the projects, they're not going to get notifications on these. So just be aware of that you do want to do that right there, and you can invite them on. And you can also add in a little description. So if there does need to be a description added in, you can. And these are mostly, so to speak, client facing. The description's client facing. The assigning, I guess, technically kind of is. And then the photo up here is. And then the activity, this part is more so for you. So you can see like a kind of activity stream of when things are approved, when things are declined, if you're publishing them, all those types of things can be done at this level. So that is just this little eye icon. Beyond that, we have this section right here that is for your budget. So whenever you're putting in a budget, you can go in and put in, say, for example, what the client's budget is looking like. And then whenever it comes to this next step, you can include for the total, tax, and shipping. If you already know what your shipping cost is going to be on a specific item, or if you know what your, obviously you want to include tax, but if you do have the shipping already, when it comes to putting this together, maybe you click on your item and under financials, you want to add in what your shipping cost is looking like. And that way, whenever they're making their approvals, they get an idea of seeing like, what's this going to be with tax and shipping. That way you're just kind of eliminating any risk of them going over budget due to one of those two factors. So what we'll do is take a look at some of these items here, and then also a little bit of it over here as well next. So project items we already touched on. Clipper and your mood boards are what sources items into this section for you. Next up is our library. So this is just your general library. Some designers have just immense libraries on Houzz. So we've added in some shortcut filters so that you can, sort by vendor, sort by categories. If you're really diligent about having all of your categories being fairly precise, the categories is probably the easiest way to filter. And dining room tables, coffee tables, all those things can be made into categories when you're using the clipper. So you could sort there and put the right stuff in. I'm just going to go ahead and throw a handful of other things on here just to kind of do it, because I wanted to pull up this little thing. So cool. And I guess I have two couches, but whatever. So at this point now, one thing that you will notice, sometimes this happens, is that these little thumbnail images kind of come up distorted. If you hit preview and share and then hit back, it does clear that out for you. Your clients aren't going to ever see that, so don't be worried about that. But just be aware that if you see it and you're like, I don't like that, how that looks, preview and share, and then hitting back clears that out. Floor plans. So besides your product library, you have the ability to drop in your floor plans. You can create one and put it on, and that way it shows up as well if that's something you wanted to, to present your client and have them have eyes on. Mood boards. So if I wanted to attach that mood board that we did, I can put that in my mood or in my room planner too. And then I can also change things. So hey, this is medium by default. Now medium size over here means that it's basically the equivalent of 4 small squares. You can make it small, you can make it whatever size you want, but just be aware that that is something that you can adjust and that you can place mood boards on. So you just click there and your mood boards can be dropped in. And the last two things here are images and files. Again, these need to come from your own hard drive. So you would be uploading photos that are, in your hard drive, files that are in your hard drive. They are available just to drop in. So you would just click to whichever one you need to go to navigate that. But those are the main controls on the right-hand side, the way that you can get your products, everything on here. What we want to look at next is just real quick so that again, there is the ability to say, click on this cocktail table. Number one, this is where I can edit stuff. So if I want to click on this lamp, maybe I need to change the title before I send it to my client. I can go ahead and highlight it, type in whatever title I want it to be. Maybe I want to change my cover photo. Don't know necessarily why I would, but if I wanted to change my cover photo to this photo, I could do that too. I don't even know if that photo has that, but I guess it did. But you can do that too. You can also adjust your general details. So we can make small changes to those. And our finance, anything financial related to this product. So I can adjust my cost, my markups, again, add in shipping cost. If there's vendor facing information I want that is attached to this product, I can put that on here too. You can see what your purchase cost will be, your markups, what the selling cost is once you add that in. So hey, $5.49 I think was what it showed. We're doing one of those, and my shipping cost, I'll just leave that out. But those are small details you can add in if you choose to on a vendor facing or client facing customs or item customizations. These are the specs. So if you ever see this little pop-up, that's where you can add in other details in case you forgot to clip those and you want to make sure your client sees that when they're approving items. For couches or things like that, it could obviously be really important. And the only other stuff to really mention here, item overview, again, that pulls up this section. I always click on the picture. I don't know why, but item overview is another way to get there. A product link is super handy because this takes you back to where you got that, where you clipped it from originally. So sometimes it's not a bad idea just to double check, hey, is this still $5.49? You click there, you're right back to that item. You can do it all really fast. Especially whenever you're using items that have been in your library a little bit longer. Chat is right here, so you can make comments to your clients and your team members. If you comment to a team member, it is visible to your team member only. If you comment to your client, it's visible to your client and any team members that you've added into your or you've assigned, again, with this section to your room planner. And the only other stuff I was going to kind of touch on is this little ellipses. Again, we can change our sizes. We kind of already touched on that. You can actually make some of these things your cover image. So if you wanted to make your mood board your cover image, that's what I see most common if it's not like a photo. You can do that from here. And you can hide items from your client if you choose to. So those are just kind of how some of this different section works. Ultimately, if they're, approving items, they include in budget. And that's where you can kind of see that we had included tax. This 2340 piece now is 2544. So it's capturing that sales tax as they're making these approvals to make sure that we don't go over budget. But this is all a perspective that you see as a designer. And if you click preview and share, there are some additional settings. This is similar to like proposals and invoices where we have a previous, the view right before this is your version of this document. Now we're starting to look at this more from a client's view. This is how your client would see this. And what they can then do, or what you can do, I should say, is, turn on the budget. It's something I always recommend. If you have a budget, make sure you turn it on so the client actually can stay within it as they're approving items. And then you can also include different, hey, maybe I don't want the quantity to show up. Don't know why, but, or descriptions like, hey, whenever a client gets this, there's certain description information and stuff that they'll see that you clipped. So you can kind of control what's visible there. If you're ever in a situation, honestly, I feel like e-design is really the only one where you'd ever kind of get down this road with somebody. But if you're in like an e-design more so situation, they're purchasing the products, you're just doing all this. Number one, obviously, you don't want the markups to show up. You wouldn't really have markups on those. But if you click to turn on product links, then the client can go directly to every single one of these products. So just know that that is an option. And the rest of this is just their approvals where they can approve and decline products, mood boards, and floor plans. But on the floor planners, that's really mostly it. You build it out in this view. You can kind of make sure you get everything that you want to show on the next one. And then that's how you can kind of get these distributed. You can save these as PDFs. You can make these into tear sheets. And if you're, whenever you're happy with it, you publish it to the dashboard. And now it's going to show up in our product dashboard, which we'll take a quick look at the end of the training.
Awesome. Just two questions. So if you change information on an item that's in a room plan, will it change everywhere that that item is included?
No, it's just changing it in the room plan. If you want to change it across the entire platform, I would just go under the I thought it was here. Under manage. Is that where they put it? Yeah. I feel like I'm just missing it. But products and services, sorry. So you would just go under manage to products and services, click on that, and then you can just find like the cocktail table and change it here. I think you'd be better off doing that if you want it to be a permanent change. Otherwise, it's just changes that are specific to this document.
Okay, great. And then can you just show an example if a product is hidden, how it comes up or
Yeah,
doesn't?
yeah, no. So basically at that point now, it gets moved down to here at the bottom. It gets sorted out as a hidden item. And then it just doesn't, I don't know, like it's not there,
Mhm.
That's how it changes it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep. And
Okay.
just the last thing I'll mention on this before we move over to takeoffs, living rooms, so or not, room planners. If you're working on like maybe there's tons of times you'll see 15 or 20 room planners in a project. You can just click on this and then navigate between them. You don't need to like go back out and keep coming back in, by going out to the project and then coming back to the room planner. Like just click there and you can kind of quickly navigate between them all and convert. I'm not going to do a conversion, but this is how you then can make this room planner. So, you've already gotten the products sourced. You've already shown mood boards. You've gotten a lot of these things underway now. If you're ready to make this a proposal, you can just hit convert. room planners, in my opinion, are like the backbone of the project, because if you get all the work done here, the rest of it's a lot quicker. But you just come back to proposal, you hit select all, and then also you can include as many rooms. If I had 4 or 5 rooms here, I could include, maybe I just want to do a living room and a powder room in my proposal, and I can just convert those 2 rooms, or I can convert all of them, just convert 1 room at a time. It's up to you. We don't really have any dictation on that, but it just, you have the ability to do whatever you want with that. And then I did go over budget, but whatever. But that's mostly it with the room planners. So I'll move over to takeoffs. Does that sound good?
Great. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to get rid of some of these other tabs that I have open, and I actually have one open for takeoffs right here. Just to show you how I get there. Pretty self-explanatory. Oh, there's our room planner. So what I'm going to do is hit takeoffs. Once I click on that, I now am at this screen. And what I can do is upload my takeoff render. So I'm going to hit upload. I am going to choose a floor plan of some sort here. So let's go ahead and get that put on. I'm going to go ahead and load that. Sometimes on the demo account, it like kicks me out before I see it. Let me see. Nope. Okay, cool. But basically what it's doing is preparing these. I think I attached like a 5-page PDF for some reason, but but if you're ever uploading just one PDF, one render, that's a little quicker. Mine was 4, but eventually it catches up pretty quickly. So really what we have now is different renders, different things that we can do with this. So this software is really handy. I mean, across a lot of different types of people on Houzz, to be honest. The one thing I was going to mention with this is that, I'm going to zoom out slightly. You can do everything from foundations, and all of that good stuff, to just basically going directly into your rooms. What we're going to do is go into like just a room here so that we can just kind of go through some quick stuff. But there are elevations. There's all sorts of different stuff that you can do with these takeoffs to get really good measurements down and get your clients the right stuff. So first thing we're going to do, we've uploaded a plan. We are now in the takeoff center, and takeoffs, first off, just so you see, we have our settings down here. So our line width is currently at basically 1 inch. We have our page scale, which is 1/4 of an inch to a foot, and our measurements are in imperial. If you want to adjust the scale, you hit fine scale. You can hit fine scale and you can do things, but for the most part, I've never really came across a situation where these weren't good. Next up, we have favorites. So I'm only mentioning that because sometimes I do think it's easier to navigate and really make the most of your takeoffs if you've already gone in and just started putting in some favorites. I have some real basic examples down here, but like, say for example, we have favorites of carpet, hardwood flooring, vinyl flooring, laminate, and tile. Now, there's a lot of other things you can use this for, and this software is certainly not just a flooring software, but just to make this easy and to kind of show that some of the capabilities, we'll kind of stick to that right now. So first things first, if there is a certain thing we know we're doing, so say for example, we're doing a fairly large remodel. We're going to be doing a duplex from the looks of it. This is some sort of duplex situation. And if we know that, for example, we're doing a lot of hardwood floor that we're replacing through here, then I can go ahead and just click the hardwood floor. And that way, when I'm capturing my measurements, they attribute to that category. At least that's how I always kind of come into looking at these. And I think it's easiest if that's how you do it. But ultimately, it's really up to you how you want to use this. But let's go ahead and start there. What I can now do is show there's a couple different ways of measuring. So if I'm coming in, I'm doing a flooring. We're going to be doing basically the majority of this room, and powder room will be a little separate or something. So with that, I have my render. Now this is really easy. It's just a basic rectangle. So if that's all I need to do, I can just kind of take that rectangle, go on up. And at that point now I have my first measurement made. It's a hardwood floor. It is, if I wanted to title it, I could say, kitchen plus great room. And it's 472 feet or 472.95 square footage. So I now already know that. If I, if I was doing this whole duplex, one really handy thing is I can just duplicate this because I know it's the same dimension on the other side of that duplex. So that's one feature that you can also kind of do, which just saves you the time. But that's kind of how you can quickly get something like that done. Now, if I wanted to also add in, maybe we have tile in our powder room down here. I can go ahead and, click on my tile category, come down and highlight my powder room. And then I'm going to have my measurement now for my powder room. I can't spell them. Sorry about that. First floor, if you want it to be that detailed. Beyond that, I can also do slightly more complex measurements. So what I want to show you guys is a polygon. Now, polygon is just what we call this, but basically that allows you to go and cut through and kind of do your own sort of room shape. So let's say, for example, this is the upper floor. I want to go from this corner to this corner down to, like, let's say the stairs or something, over, down, over again. Now what I'm doing is basically tracing this hallway and this bedroom too. There's no real reason for it. I'm just deciding that these are all going to have the same flooring. So I come back up. Once I get back to where my render touches, or my polygon is back to where my starting point was, I just want to double click. And then now I have that room. So polygon is how you make those kind of more complicated shapes than just a rectangle. Um, I don't really know why I chose that as an example of this type of space, but that's how you can do that. And at this point now, our polygon 3 is this measurement. I left it under tile. I forgot to change it, so it's now tile floor 2. But that's kind of how you can do a polygon, which is super handy. Another couple things that we can mention real quick is length. So length is if you want to go around and, I think someone earlier asked about trim on a 3D floor plan. Though we don't have that, if you do need to capture trim, maybe they're doing trim and crown molding, and we need to make sure that we have those accurate. We can go through, we don't want to capture our staircase, but kind of everything else. And again, I didn't get too close to the wall, but we can kind of do that. And at this point now, we also have a 91. We know we need to, round up by 10%. We need about 100 feet of trim to do that room. The other cool things with these, look. Okay, I was going to say you can add height and depth. You can add a lot of those type of features. If you do that, that will adjust our total. Flooring, not as important, but there are times where you will need to do that. Deduct. So deduct is next to length. Length is how we kind of trace that room and got a measurement like that. Deduct is now if I wanted to take something out. So, obviously I don't want to include my staircase in this estimate. So I can go through and do that. And that's going to now take that amount of square footage out. And my kitchen has now changed from, I think it was like 490 or so to 422. Count is up here. Count is very, very handy as well, because that allows you to, basically count whatever you're wanting to count. So if I need it, just something basic, sinks, that would be the most common thing. But hey, we want to make our sinks something that we're counting now. So I have, the one here. I can do my sink there and there and there and there. And now I'm including my 5 sinks in my estimate. But ultimately, the takeoffs, though not a 3D render by any means, are something that is really handy for kind of getting the baseline estimating down. Kitchens, bathrooms, really any type of space these can work in. And anytime you're, doing a project where you're doing a lot more than just, your furnishings and finishes and those type of things, this is really handy to make sure that you get all of those correct items, everything measured right. And then from here, you can take this and actually build it into an estimate, pulling all these numbers forward.
Awesome. Just 2 questions we've gotten on this. Can you like basically export a plan from the 3D floor planner and use it in Takeoffs?
You just have to be like, I mean, honestly, since they've added in, I haven't really done it myself, to be honest. Like if you did save a PDF floor plan, you would want to, just in case, because like our PDF floor plans, when they are saved, they actually don't include the internal measurements on them, unless that's changed recently, but I'm pretty certain they do not. So the one thing is that even if you did import one to then use, you would want to make sure that you are keeping track of some of those like measurements. I just personally, I think that would be a little tricky. Um, so I would, if you can, I'd probably still try to use like more of these type of floor plans. But I do know that that's something that I've heard like mentioned before in our team meetings and stuff, where they want to make that a little bit more of a easy process to transition between that floor plan software and then using takeoffs.
Yes, exactly. And then can you just show how you scale the drawing when you first brought it in?
Yeah. So I was going to say it's kind of similar to the other stuff. So this one actually scaled on its own. Let's see. Oh, am I in click mode? Because you find scale, I don't know if it's going to let me redo that.
Okay, or you could just talk to it.
Yeah. So ultimately, for the most part, it actually should be able to pick up the scale based on the render that you're bringing on whenever you bring it, like upload it. But if it's giving you difficulty with it, I am pretty confident, and especially based on these instructions, it's very much the same scaling method that we did on our 2D floor plan. So you would want to make sure that you're basically drawing a line from one wall to another of a measurement that you know is at like a known measurement. So 25 feet or whatever. And then you type that in manually, and that's what sets the scale, because then it captures that line. And it's like, okay, well, this is 25 feet long. And then it's able to optimize the rest of the room to follow that same scaling pattern.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Um, All right, awesome. Well, but yeah, takeoffs. The one thing I was going to add to this, I don't want to make takeoffs as long as I did on the 3D render stuff, because I probably went long there. There's a YouTube video. It's kind of long. It's like 20 minutes long, but it's a really good deep dive into takeoffs. And I do recommend, if you have time, watching that, because once you watch that, you'll come out of it really confident with using this software and using this to make your estimates. Because you hit review and estimate, you can then start adding in, the different, start it as an estimate, you pull it in, measurements look good, awesome, hit start a new measurement. That's where you can start adding in your unit cost, your material, the materials, the labor, all of that. And you can build this out into a doc that will be, accurate. So cool. Well, next up is time. I can roll through time and expense and some of these next things kind of quickly, or I'll try to. Um, so number one, time and expense is right here. You hit manage, you come down, it's right under track business. And time and expense is something that is available to both the administrators on the account as well as the team members, assuming they have the permissions enabled to let them do that. And with these time and expenses, there's two ways of doing it, or inputting time. First, and possibly most common, is the actual stopwatch. Up on the desktop or on mobile in your app, there is a stopwatch feature. You click on it, you hit start, you choose your project, you choose your rate, or the service, I should say. Design rate, maybe it's travel, maybe you're billing for the travel time, whatever it is. But you put that on there. You make sure that your pricing is accurate. If you have a description, I don't have any description saved, but if you had one, it would populate. If you needed to, you could type it in, and then you hit start. Once you start it, it's running until you stop it. As soon as you stop it, that time entry goes right here, and it just becomes a line item in your time and expense section. Now, if you're not using the stopwatch or you forgot to do it, you can always come back and hit new entry right here, and you can just choose the project, the team member, whether it's yourself or whether it's one of your colleagues, or junior designers, whatever the case. You can then select the service. And again, it's kind of just fact checking. Hey, this is billable. It's clearly not taxable. Make sure that you put in the right number of hours. Maybe this is 2 hours worth of work. You can put down the date that it's on. If there is a description you want to attach, you can. If you just want to log another entry, you can actually do that right here to save yourself the time of, this is all under one project. Maybe I want to add 4 entries from 4 days. Well, I just hit log, and that's how I would do it. I would never want to take the time to click new entry and keep putting in the same project in the name. Like, I did all of these entries at one time, which I should actually click out of there. So I think it was like 7 entries at one time, and I think I changed the date on one of them. But it's really fast to do it that way. And if you're somebody that is managing time for other colleagues, you can do that. You can select their time, all those type of things, select that. And the only other thing here that I was going to mention is that for the administrators on the accounts, they can manage time services right there. So clicking on manage time services opens up this little screen, and that's where you can go in and say, hey, Benihana doesn't have the same design rates that I do, and make changes to whatever rates are applicable for them. So that's where you can set all your team rates. Only administrators on the accounts, I'm pretty sure, have access to that. And if there's ever stuff you have to delete, you can do that too. You just check it and delete it. But really, that's mostly how some of this looks. You can edit things. Hey, I need to come back and change that. It's now my rate went up to 250 because of everything else in the world's going up in price. So I'm going to do that. And then if you ever need to, you can also put icons or little photo things with these if you like. And basically, though they don't show up here, when it goes to an invoice, the client would see whatever icon you have with your service entry. But for time and time entries, that is how you can manage those and put them in. Expenses are handled in a very similar way. You can exchange or make all of your different expense services. These will get really long. There's quite a few that I see that will not necessarily like for one invoice, but there's certainly times I'll see designers I work with who have expense libraries essentially that are 50 or more different things that they would use, fabric samples to travel to tile to everything in between. So just know that that is right here, and that you can hit new entries. You can select whatever you need to expense, and that is something that can then go onto an invoice as well. Now, these are not necessarily like business expenses, as in terms of like I've had people ask like, oh, is this where you had to expense like office supplies? I don't like, it's not really that. It's really more so if you're expensing like a service that is going to be billable to a client. But that's kind of time and expense with a quick view. And then the only other thing I was going to do is just show how, hey, I have, most designers I work with, they'll have kind of like consolidated time invoicing that occurs kind of towards the end of the month. So, hey, I have all these different time entries. I need to make sure they're getting billed. I can highlight them all. I can hit create invoice. And at that point now, all of this is just generated automatically into an invoice that I can, assuming I already have like my terms and conditions and memos and all those things like in place, I can just grab those from my templates, drop them on. Hey, I'm having my client pay the whole amount at once. I need to have it due on receipt. It's not due on 15 days, whatever it is. And I can send this out and get paid on this, in real time. So that's time and expense where you can build out your entries and you can navigate those into a invoice for your client.
Awesome. Just one question. Can you have multiple administrators on an account?
No. I've heard rumors that might change. I don't know if you know anything about that, Katie, but as of now, no. It's just one
Okay.
admin.
Yeah,
I've
no,
always
I'm
thought it'd
not
be
sure,
kind
but
of cool.
that's good feedback.
Yeah, because it's like admins, they have complete control of their teams and like the profiles. So there's certain like limitations to what a team member would have. I've always thought it'd be kind of interesting, or at least cool for some teams to have like a secondary admin. But yeah, right now it's just that head, whoever's the main account login is the person that have control of that.
Okay,
And
great.
just in case you run into it, grouping by category, I'm going to hop off this in a second, but just in case, grouping by category is how you can make this so that time billing is just 13.25. It's 29.81 at the top. And if you want to send it to your client where it's just like this, you can. Or if you actually want them to see the detailed breakdown, then they can see all the hours individually. So I get a lot of feedback from people that want to send it as just time billing and no other like detail. So if you want to do that, you can. You just send it as you just group it as a category for time, and then you can send it. So cool. So what we'll do now is take a look at task. So we're going to hop off of the time, hop into our project really quick, and go to our task. Tasks are fairly quick. They are up here at the top. You click task, it brings you to the correct section for task right here. And at this point, tasks are things that you can delegate, or basically things that you want to make sure that you're getting done within a project. So um, go out to measure space, really generic, but we save that. That is now a task. Once you create a task, let me go ahead and save that too. So we have go out to measure space and create 3D render based on measurements. So once I've made a task, now I can manage it. You do need to type a task in prior to managing it, but once you've done that, you can then come here, click on the task itself, and you'll see the manage portion. So is there a due date? Yes, I'm going out today to go do that. Is that something I want to share on my timeline? We'll briefly go into timelines in a moment, but yes, we can have that too. Do we have an assignee that we want to have on there? So in this case, is it me, or is it my, is the call, Benihana here going out to do it? It's dependent on who you want to assign, but you can do that. And you can also assign these to a client. So if we were at a point where, hey, I want to have a client, I'm just going to send them a task for approving the room planners. I can assign a task to them, and when they're done, they can mark it completed, and you'll get feedback that they're done with their task. Beyond that, you can add in descriptions and you can add in files. So there's different stuff that you can add into these tasks. Once a task is finished, whether they, a colleague or a client is, or even, if they're hitting done, that completes it for you and you're set. It moves to completed. Or if it is something that you're doing on your end, you can just hit that little blue check mark and it moves it to completed too. But tasks are very handy. You'll see a lot of cases where there's 30 to 40 tasks that are in a project, and maybe half of them are still needing to be completed, and you have 4 or 5 projects going on at once. That can get really overwhelming. So just be aware that in our Houzz Pro Manage Center is the Task Center. And mine's going to look really unorganized right now, but a Task Center is basically going to consolidate all of my tasks into one spot. And then I can look at them, whether it's chronologically by the newest task, or if it is by, or I guess I already completed mine, sorry. So if those were still open, they would be over here. I can sort tasks by my team members, which is really handy as well, or by clients. I can do it by the projects. So there's different ways that you can navigate these tasks and make it a lot easier. And a lot of times, whenever you're in a situation where you're managing a handful of projects and some employees and all of that, this is a very good way to make sure things don't slip through the cracks. Um, I don't know how else to like really expand on that, but that's just what it does. Is it basically is a one-stop shop that will show you all the tasks that you've made across all the projects you have, and it'll sort them by open task as well as completed. So is there any questions on tasks? You want to see me create one again, or just go back to them or anything like that?
I think we're good. There don't seem to be questions there.
Cool. So and again, tasks are in the project or under manage under task center. So what we'll look at next is our timeline, and we're going to do it under a Gantt view. Some designers I work with do not like the Gantt view. Some do. It just depends. There is a calendar view available as well. Gantt view does a much better job, though, of showing you the dependencies and the sub items, in my opinion. So that's why I personally like the Gantt view a lot. But the calendar view is available, and you can always come in and have that showing. That's what you prefer. And you can also sort these by weeks or days or months, depending on how you want to pull up a calendar view of this project. Whereas Gantt view, it's going to be a little bit more focused. Each block here is a week, and the way that these all work is basically that we have our items, we have different sub items. I'll go through and just create them. So we'll get these out of here so that we just start from scratch. Now, timelines, we'll just start with something basic here. Let's say that we have our phase one of our project. Um, you can add in a description. You can add in a status. Now, status is basically open or completed. You can have assignees, so you can assign these out to your clients, really, or more so for team members. You can also, if you have subcontractors invited, you can, I believe, you can assign out or at least make sure that they have visibility on the timeline. Um, but if you assign tasks to them, they can obviously mark those completed. We go down, we have our time. Now, time is all day by default. And what they'll do is calculate working days. So if we go down there, we can see that we have the 3 working days. If we go to the fourth, you'll see that your phase is getting stretched out a little longer here. You can also always just drag it from there, whatever you prefer. If you drag it here, it automatically adjusts your date here. But basically, you can do these whether they're full days, full working days, or you can toggle that off and just select, hey, this part of it is from this time to this time, and it's working hours as opposed to working days. So that's the difference between the days and the hours on this. We'll just say phase one is maybe 2 weeks long. Now, after that, you'll see, okay, cool, our phase is there. I can click back on it. Below here, I have my dependencies. So maybe this is something that if we had another item, we can have a dependency with it. And there's also the ability to add in sub items. So sub items, you can click on there and you can put down. Maybe we have a sub item. Phase one is mostly demo. So we could have in, you know, first thing we're doing, or uh, tearing out our built-ins is our first step. And maybe that is not going to take as long. So maybe this sub item is really only going to be taking until that Monday. After that, I might have a second, a sub item that would come up. So if I wanted to add in another sub item, I could do that. Maybe this one is remove existing flooring. At that point, again, I can go through, make sure I have that corrected. So if I wanted to say, hey, this is going to begin after the built-ins, then at that point I can say, hey, this starts after there. In this case, I would want to adjust it so that it really does begin on, like, say, the second. And then maybe this is only going to take about, a couple days. And what you're going to see is by making that dependency, that's why we now have this little like connection point there. And as you expand on these and add in other sub items, maybe we have this going on. We want to, it's a hardwood, for example, so we need to make sure that we give it a little time before we start actually putting weight or furniture on it. So maybe starting on the 5th, we have this running through the 9th, and at the 9th is when we'll begin the next phase. If I had that brought in more, and I can also just do that. So if you earlier I clicked to add in a dependency by doing it down at the bottom, beginning after, you can also just simply click on one of those circles and just drag it and make a connection there. But you can add these in. Maybe that would be our first phase. After I get that done, I could add another item. That item could be, for example, adding, more of the installation and more of the living room design process, whatever it is. But again, as long as you can understand adding items, custom, titling those items, putting in descriptions if you choose to, assigning them if they're not, if that's necessary as well, and just really grasping the dates, how to control the dates, the all day versus the hours, the dependencies. Once you kind of get all of those done, you can really start building out very elaborate timelines. We have some really good videos on YouTube for timelines that I actually refer to, or will refer to myself and send clients to. So that's where I would probably hop to, is YouTube Houzz Pro and timelines, and there's some things there. But these are the building blocks, and if you get those down, adding in and getting 6 or 8 or 10 items onto a timeline with dependencies and all those sub items underneath them is a very normal thing to see within these projects.
Great. Just one quick question. Does the main task adjust based on the sum of the subtasks under it?
No. And well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like it does if I have a sub item that is dated to end after I originally had my task, my like main phase one to end, would it adjust?
I think so, yeah.
No, you do still have like some manual control there where you would have to go back and adjust that time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you'd have to go back and change that date from the item here.
Okay, great. And then just one note, we are actually releasing an updated version of this in the June timeframe. So keep an eye out for that.
Yep, awesome. And then the only other thing I was going to mention with this is that you can then hit share. So timelines, and if you had your task on there or stuff like that, those can show up as well. So that's what I think no, that was just item two. But basically you can add in the share button. So you click here. It is a 2-prompt share. We don't want to make this something you accidentally share with somebody, but you hit share, and then you can choose what type of access you want to give. So if you give a client basic access, they're not going to see your sub items. They're not going to see some of the more nitty gritty, the dependencies or any of that. They're basically just seeing these main titled items, phase one, phase two, whatever. If you are inviting them to see the detailed view, then they see everything. And you have the ability to add in your clients and your subcontractors. So you can do, as long as your subs have been added into the project, you can invite either one in and get those published so that that is available to see on a dashboard. And once you see that they're added, you'll just see like another icon get added to this section right there. And then this section, I hit preview client dashboard. And this is actually kind of what we're ending off on anyway. I don't have invoices or some of those other things in here, but I did publish my room plan, so that's why we're now seeing this in my dashboard. If I had files that I uploaded that I made visible, those would be visible in my dashboard for my client. My financials, if there was proposals, if there was outstanding amounts of money due, things like that would show up here too. And then of course I just published it, so my timeline is something that they can see too. And this is how that would appear to them, where they can come in and see this. They can zoom, they can, they can't change anything by any means, but they have the ability to kind of come in and take a look at this and all that good stuff. So export it, calendar view it, whatever they want to do, because they can switch between their views if they prefer that method. But the dashboard, I know I kind of just am briefly touching on it, but it's really the sum of you adding in products, and as you get through the product or the project, you'll start to see this dashboard really expand in what it contains and what information is available in it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a very useful view that we know a lot of our designers are using with their clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just anytime you have something published to the dashboard, the only thing I want to mention is that if you don't want the client to see it anymore, you do need to go back to that item and unpublish it. So whether it's a room planner, whether there's something else that you just are needing to make adjustments to, or you just want to take away the visibility on the timeline for the moment or something, just know that you can always do that. You can change like hey, I want to unpublish that. Now that's not visible. But you have the ability to do those sort of things in that dashboard. And the dashboard is a really kind of nice way to present, a finished, polished product to your client.
Great. And then just some questions on the overall project timeline. Um, can you explain, I guess, a relation between the individual timelines and then the overall project timeline?
Yeah, well, there's not, so unlike, let me take a look really quick, because within the timeline overview, it generally is going to be very comparable to to like the way the task center works. So if that's what you're asking, like the timeline, if you have 5 projects going on and you're doing timelines on all 5 of those projects, you go under manage timelines. This option is going to bring all of those into one place. I will advise, if you do want to do it that way, one thing is that unless I'm wrong, I believe that these generally will still pull the colors that are from the timelines in the projects. So sometimes it will get a little bit like if you, unless you're changing those colors, like they'll all kind of appear the same color. I know I've had somebody bring that up once, but really, that's really mostly it. Like you manage the timeline, you don't add entries here. This is really just an overview. And then whenever you're adding entries or managing a timeline, you do it within the project itself. Mhm.
Well, thank you. I think, Chris, that covered everything that we're going to go over, right?
Yeah. Yep. That was everything for me.
Okay, awesome. I just want to take 1 minute to share a certification program that we just launched actually a week or two ago. Um, so I just want to show it to you quickly because we're very excited about it. So this is a Houzz Pro certification basically to help you really get up to speed with all the features that we think are most important for you to successfully run your business using Houzz Pro. So you can access it from the homepage. If you scroll down, there's this button here to earn your credential. And it includes about 25 different steps, a lot of which were covered in the academies over the last few days. And so if you go through, you can see, the first module is around getting started. So all the steps that are included here, links to videos that can help you figure out how to do it, and then a button to go directly into the product to do that task. So if you've already completed something, you'll see this green check mark here. If not, the blue button is how you can go in to complete the task. And then as you go through, it'll show how many of the tasks you've completed. So once you're done, we will email you a badge that you can either add to your Houzz profile or you can add it to your email signature, to your website, social media, anything like that. And we're going to start doing homeowner education as well. So they'll start looking out for designers who are Houzz Pro certified. So just a plug there for that. I encourage you to check it out. I think especially after going through these academies, you'll have a much better sense of how to accomplish all those tasks. So thank you so much, everyone. I know we went over, but I hope you all found this valuable. And as I said, we will be sending out the recordings in the next week or two. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.